Today I'm going to be showing you my entire raptor collection from Jurassic World and ranking them from biggest all the way to the smallest. The first and largest raptor of this collection is this custom colored super colossal Indoraptor. This used to be a Velociraptor blue figure, but now it has the black with the gold stripe down its back for the Indoraptor. For the next biggest figure is another super colossal. This is Velociraptor blue. And as you can see, these two super colossal figures are actually identical. So this one originally used to be a Velociraptor blue just like this. Moving on to our next biggest figure is this Dino Tracker's Indoraptor. This is quite a new figure and it's got a really cool reflective blue color all over it. It's also got an action button on its back to activate its jaw. And you can move the arms to twist the neck back and forth too. Next up in size, let's see, I think it's actually another Indoraptor, but this is an older figure. This is the grab and growl version. And this figure is pretty hard to find nowadays, so it's actually pretty rare. And on this figure, you can use the tail to open and close the jaw, to swing the arms back and forth, and to move the entire torso. Check it out, they're pretty close in size. Next up, I'm gonna be opening a brand new one. This is the Primal Pal Velociraptor blue figure. Let's open it up. So this figure has a shorter tail than a lot of the Velociraptor figures I have, and it actually has some pretty realistic movements. You can move it side to side, it's got some sound effects, and you can push it down for a chomp action too. And let's set that right next in line. Moving right along here, I think we've got our final Indoraptor of this collection. A lot of these Indoraptors are pretty big. This is the smallest one, and it doesn't have any action buttons, but all of its limbs are still extremely posable. This next one is the basic Velociraptor blue figure. There's not too much that you can adjust with it, but it still has movable arms, legs, and a tail. This next one is another medium-sized basic Velociraptor figure, but it has totally different coloring. It's in a bright orange and brown coloring. Next, we've got our first Atrociraptor of this collection, and this figure I actually personally custom colored. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World, so it doesn't have that many action features, but I'm really happy with how the color turned out. Check it out, here's another Atrociraptor figure. This is the basic edition, once again from Jurassic World. So let's set this down right next to the custom colored one. And here is our first Pyroraptor of this collection. This is the basic edition, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail. And I think it might be a little bit smaller or actually the same size as the Atrociraptors. All right, here is the first and only Megaraptor that I have in my entire collection. This is from the Jurassic World Dominion series. It's got some huge claws on its hand, and when you press down on its back, it has a chomping action. For the next in size, let's go with the Hammond Edition Velociraptor. These raptors are pretty cool because they are super articulate with their limbs, and they have quite a bit more detail than the basic ones. And right over here is another Amber Collection Velociraptor. This one is Velociraptor Blue. Check out that blue stripe down its back. And here is the final Amber Collection Velociraptor that I have in this collection. This one is the bright green with stripes on it. And let's set that down right next in line. Next up here is a pretty old Jurassic World figure. This is one of the first Velociraptors that Jurassic World released for the first movie. And these figures have quite a hard time standing up, so let's see if we can get it to stand up in line as the next in size. All right, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get. Here is another Atrociraptor figure in the bright orange coloring, but this is actually a Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor. Let's turn on the power and let's see it come to life. All right, now we're getting down to the real small raptors. Let's open up this new Austroraptor from the Dino Tracker series. So I think this is the only Austroraptor that I have in my entire collection. And this one has a much narrower and longer snout than a lot of the Velociraptor figures I have in my collection, but it's still got some feathering on its elbows. right over here, I've got a super bright Velociraptor figure. It's in a bright blue color, and this one is actually spring-loaded, so you can launch it up into the air. Here, let me show you how it leaps. You press down, and then you release. This next one is another spring-loaded Velociraptor, but this is in a brown and dark brown coloring. Let's check out that jumping action on this one too. Next up, this Velociraptor figure has a slashing action. So when you push on its torso, it swings back and forth, and it's actually spring-loaded too, so it can be pretty fast. All right, let's set this down next in line. This next one is a darker colored Velociraptor, and it has a different feature. There's a button on its back that you can use for a slashing action. Next, we've got our final Atrociraptor figure of this collection, and this is a battle damage edition. There is a button on its back that you can use to activate the battle damage on the side. And since we're out of space on the very end of the table, let's start a new line up front here. This next figure is a newer Velociraptor from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got a darker body with some bright detailing on the top. This next raptor is a really cool colored Velociraptor. Check out that green speckled detailing on the top of its body. And let's set that down right there. Here's a different looking Velociraptor blue figure. This might actually be Velociraptor Beta because it does look quite a bit younger. Now this is an amazingly colored Velociraptor. Check out that reflective gold right on its head. And let's put that next in line. All right, only two left. This next one is another Pyroraptor figure, but this one is a battle damage edition with a button on the top to open and close the battle damage. And the final raptor in this biggest to smallest collection is this click tracker, Atrociraptor. So after you turn it on, you use the remote and it follows the sound. Let's check that out. It's pretty cool. I like that it's motorized. Today on Amazing Dinosaurs, we are checking out a T-Rex versus Raptor collection, and we're gonna set them up to face off against each other on the table. Let's get started with our first T-Rex. This is the classic Camp Cretaceous T-Rex, and is one of my favorites because of how realistic it looks when you move it. Next, let's grab our first raptor. Let's go with this huge Dino Trackers Indoraptor. This is actually one of the newest and most recent Indoraptor figures that Mattel has released. And there are the first two facing off. Let's get some more. Next up, let's go with the classic Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex figure. This figure is a whole lot darker than the Camp Cretaceous version, and it might actually be a little bit bigger. For our next raptor, why don't we go with this big one right here? I believe that this is Velociraptor Blue, and it actually has some pretty cool action features. You can press down on its body for a chomping action, and you can swivel it side to side as if it's walking. All right, let's set that up right in front of the huge Indoraptor. For our next T-Rex, let's go with the huge Stomp and Escape T-Rex. I think this might actually be from Camp Cretaceous as well. And it's got some pretty cool attack buttons. There's a button on its back for the roaring action. Plus, you can twist the tail for stomp sound effects. Let's see, we've got another big raptor in here. Let's go with this next Indoraptor. This is actually a pretty old figure. This is the Grab and Growl Indoraptor. And it's called that because it has a few features. First, you can use this button to move its arms. There's also a button on the bottom of its tail to chomp the jaw. And you can even use the tail to move the head around too. All right, let's put this one pretty close to the other Indoraptor figure. There, he'll be holding on to this little guy. Back to the T-Rexes. Let's grab this guy and see it is a battle damage T-Rex. Check that out right there on the side with a click of a button. You can reveal the battle damage. Plus, the rest of the body is posable as well. Now let's set this one down right next to the Camp Cretaceous T-Rex. And there they are facing off with the Raptors. For our next raptor, we're gonna grab this one at the bottom. This is a Utah Raptor from Jurassic Park. So this figure is pretty old and actually has a rubber skin texture as opposed to the hard plastic of all the rest of these. And you can even move the claws on its feet up and down. Let's set this one up right next to the Grab and Growl Indoraptor. On to our next T-Rex, we've got a few more huge ones in here. This one, I believe, is from Fallen Kingdom. And this one features a pretty cool chomping action when you move its tail. Check that out just by moving its tail down. And when you move its tail the other way, it actually has a roaring action. Let's see now, let's put this T-Rex right next to the Stomp and Escape. Back to the Raptors, let's grab this little one. This is our first Atrociraptor of this collection. And this is actually a Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor. It is actually battery operated and you can get it to walk around. Plus it has some chomping and roaring sound effects. We're gonna set this one up towards the front because it is a bit shorter than the rest of them. Our next T-Rex is a battle damage T-Rex. You can see that it has some battle damage slashes on its chin and on its neck and on other parts of its body too. So it is a battle damage T-Rex like this one, but this one you can turn on and off, and this one is just painted on its body. And so we're gonna put it right next to the other battle damage T-Rex. Looks like we've got a few more Indoraptor figures in this collection. This one is from Fallen Kingdom, so it's pretty old, and it doesn't have any action buttons, but its whole body is very posable. So let's get them posed, and let's set them right next to the Utah Raptor. For our next T-Rex, we've got a pretty wildly colored one. This one was actually custom colored. Plus, I believe this T-Rex is from the first Jurassic World movie, so you might have some trouble finding it now. Next, let's grab this Atrociraptor figure in the classic white with brown striping, just like in the movie. And this is a basic figure, so sadly there's no action buttons, but it still looks really cool. Let's set it down right next to the other Atrociraptor. Looks like we got one more big T-Rex here. This T-Rex is also from the first Jurassic World movie, so it is pretty old and probably pretty hard to find. And this version has the tan coloring. It's got some gray detailing along its face and the action button on its back for the jaws. All right, here is our final Indoraptor of the collection, I think. This is the basic version of the Indoraptor, so it's a whole lot less posable than many of these other figures right here. And it might actually be a little bit smaller. All right, it looks like it is in the sneaking pose. Check out that gold stripe that switches to a darker brown gold right along its tail. And let's set this up right beside these Atrociraptor figures. Now let's grab this T-Rex figure. This is actually a model T-Rex figure, not made by Mattel, but it still looks really ferocious, has some really cool texturing and color detailing too. And since it's a little bit smaller, let's set it up on the front lines right in front of the Raptors. Over here, we've got a huge Velociraptor blue figure. And just like this Indoraptor figure that we see right here, this is the basic version of Velociraptor blue. So it's not super posable, but it still looks great. Let's set this up right behind the basic Indoraptor. We've got some crazy looking T-Rexes in here. This figure's a bit smaller than all the rest of the T-Rexes, but it still has some amazing coloring. Check out that texturing and the fading from the yellow to the green. Let's set this one down right behind the first model T-Rex figure. Back to our Raptors, we've got another Velociraptor blue figure, but this one is from the Amber collection, so this one is super posable, and it's even got some glowing gold eyes. That's a really cool feature. So why don't we set this one up right next to the basic Velociraptor blue figure. Look at the differences in the coloring and the texturing. compared to the basic version right here. On to our next T-Rex figure. We've got a blue and gold T-Rex figure right here, and it's even got some bright teal coloring right around its eyes too. I think this figure might be the smallest T-Rex yet, so let's set this one up right in front. Let's go ahead and grab these other two Amber Collection Velociraptors. There's first Velociraptor Charlie in the bright green coloring with the striping along the top and a headpiece right behind its face. Let's set this raptor down right in front of the Amber Collection Velociraptor Blue. And then there's Velociraptor Echo in the brown and black coloring with the lighter underbelly. And so let's set this Velociraptor up right in front of the others. Looks like we've got a few small T-Rexes in here. This is an older figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It's got a little battle damage on the side and a tail that controls the mouth. Now this is a little itty bitty T-Rex, so we're gonna put it right up front. And here is our last raptor of this collection. It looks like it's an Atrociraptor in the white with brown striping, just like this basic version right here. And so we're gonna set it up right in front, really close to the other T-Rex. And here is our final dinosaur. This is a green T-Rex from the first Jurassic World movie. Just like the other miniature T-Rex that we see right here, it's got the battle damage on the side, and you can use the tail to open and close the mouth, as well as move the neck. So let's set this down right in front, next to the other T-Rex. But wait, I've actually got a surprise for you. I've actually bought some new stuff to show in this collection. This first one is a custom colored T-Rex that I just ordered off of eBay. This is my first time seeing it, and I love the attention to detail with the coloring. It really looks lifelike. Plus, it looks like there's a whole lot more battle damage than there normally was on this figure. That is really cool. And look at that, there's even some more battle damage on the other side. All right, that is super cool. I definitely want to be getting more custom painted T-Rexes. And let's not forget, for the Raptor side, I just bought an uncaged Rowdy Roars Velociraptor beta figure. Now let's power it up and check it out. Just like the Rowdy Roar figure back there, there's a button at the top of the head. You get some chomping and sound effects. And you can also touch it underneath its chin to make it walk. Welcome back everyone, I'm Dave and this is the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out a Raptor versus T-Rex collection. And I've got a ton more T-Rexes and Raptors over here, plus some new ones that we'll be opening up shortly. But first, let's check out these super colossal figures. This is Velociraptor Blue in this super colossal form. It's got the iconic blue stripe and the classic raptor teeth. Right next to that is an Atrociraptor figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's colored white and it has some brown striping on its body and some very similar teeth. And the last super colossal raptor is this new Indoraptor figure, and it is one of my favorites for sure. Like Velociraptor Blue, it has a stripe down its side, but it is a gold stripe, and I really love how different its teeth are compared to the other raptors. Moving over to the T-Rex side, this is the super colossal T-Rex from Jurassic World Dominion. It has the brown colored body and totally different teeth compared to the raptors. Right next to that is a custom colored T-Rex that I've had for a really long time. It is a light blue-gray color. It has some dark red eyes and some sharper teeth, I think, compared to the Dominion T-Rex. And finally, there is another custom colored T-Rex here. This one is the Fire T-Rex. It's got red, yellow, and black all over its body. Its eyes actually do not have any pupils, and overall is just a really cool looking dinosaur. And now let's check out these new sets that I got. This first one is the Jurassic World Legacy Collection Tyrannosaurus Ambush Pack. Here is the Jeep that comes in this set. It is a camo Jeep. It's got the barricaded windows, and at the top is Dr. Ian Malcolm. But even better than that is this new T-Rex with new painting. I don't have another T-Rex with this color design on it. Looks to be mostly a dark green color. It has some gray and yellow accenting on the top of its back. And of course, it has the button at the top of its head for chomping and roaring. Now let's check out the new Dino Tracker's Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. And here it is, an entirely new T-Rex figure in my collection. Once again, this one has totally new coloring. It's got some brown striping with an almost yellow color along the top. And it has this headpiece that you can fit it onto its face. And now it's kind of like an eyepiece or something like that. And this figure actually has a new attack button on its back. Let's check it out. So it's like a sideways chomping action with sound effects. That's pretty cool. Now let's get these new T-Rex figures set up on the T-Rex side. And now let's move on to our next figures. So next we're gonna grab a raptor. Why don't we go with the largest one here? This is a Pyroraptor figure. And this one's pretty special because it actually is battery powered and you can actually play with it and it walks around and stuff. So let me turn on the power. Let's see it. You can tap it on the head here, and it'll respond to you, or underneath the chin as well. That's a pretty cool and pretty unique figure. We're gonna set it over here on the Raptor side. Now it's back to the T-Rexes. Let's check out this epic roaring T-Rex from Camp Cretaceous. This figure is a little bit larger than the other T-Rexes that I've shown so far, and it has an attack button on its tail for roaring and chomping and moving the head around. And let's get this T-Rex on the T-Rex side right there. Back to the Raptors, let's go with this awesome Indoraptor figure. As you can tell, this figure is way smaller than the super colossal Indoraptor figure, but I'm still a pretty big fan of it. It's got this cool blue reflective coloring over its entire body. So let's go ahead and set it up underneath the super colossal Raptors. Next up for the T-Rexes, I've got the new 93 Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This figure was released as part of the 30th anniversary for Jurassic Park and looks very similar to the vintage one that they released all those years ago. It's even got the real feel skin texture too. Now let's set it up to face off against the Raptors on the T-Rex side. Let's see, what raptor should we go with next? Why don't we go with this Velociraptor blue figure? This is another pretty unique Velociraptor figure. You can see that it's built quite a bit differently and it has these really cool movements. First, it has a snapping action with sound effects. You can move its tail around, you can move its legs, and really make it look super lifelike. It's really cool. And so let's set this over on the Raptor side, right underneath the super colossal Indoraptor. For the T-Rexes, I've got a classic brown T-Rex figure. This figure features a fully posable body and the button at the top of its head for snapping its jaw open and closed. And so let's set this over here, right underneath this Dominion super colossal figure. Next, let's grab this Mega Raptor figure. This figure was released for Jurassic World Dominion. It features some really cool red and dark blue coloring. It has a ton of cool spikes on its back and a chomping action. And let's set it up right over here, right in front of the little Indoraptor. Next, let's go with a huge Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This is the Stomp and Escape T-Rex. And I think this figure is a little bit larger than almost all of these other T-Rex figures. It has a much larger torso, and it actually has a button on its back used for a huge roaring and chomping action. All right, now let's see if we can get this T-Rex lined up on the T-Rex side. Looks like he's standing a little closer to the Raptors. For the Raptors, let's grab this Amber Collection Velociraptor figure. These Amber Collection figures are really cool because of their unique coloring and because of how posable they are. You can move practically every limb in this Raptor as it would in real life. And now we're gonna set this right back here for the Raptor side. And back for the T-Rexes, let's grab this fiery red T-Rex. This T-Rex also has the yellow, black, and red coloring, very similar to the super colossal figure right here, but it's a bit more reflective and shiny overall. And it features a fully posable body and the button at the top of its head for chomping. And we're gonna set this one right next to the other fire T-Rex, right above it. Now let's grab this other Velociraptor blue figure. Looks like we have 3 Velociraptor blues in this collection so far. We first had the super colossal version, then we had this little one over here, and now here is, I believe, the smallest version in this collection. Now this figure is a basic version, so it's a bit cheaper than many of these other figures, but it doesn't have an attack button. You can only move its tail, its legs, and its arm. But overall, still pretty cool. And now let's set this in line over on the Raptor side here. This next T-Rex here is another Legacy Collection T-Rex, I believe. So here is the older Legacy Collection, and here is the newer version that we just opened up at the beginning of the video. And this version too has some dark green coloring, although it just has some black striping on the top of its body, but it still has the button on its head for chomping and roaring. Now why don't we go ahead and set it up right in front of the other Legacy Collection T-Rex. So we got the 2 green T-Rexes right next to each other. Here's another basic figure for the Raptor side. This is a Pyroraptor from Jurassic World Dominion. Now it's pretty similar in shape and size to the Velociraptor blue figure that we saw earlier from the basic series, but it has some pretty cool feather texturing on its arms, on its body, and on the top of its head too. So let's go ahead and set this up right next to the Velociraptor blue figure. Here is the Terran T-Rex figure. This one is a massive Tyrannosaurus Rex. It still has the classic brown coloring on its body, but it has 2 big action buttons on its back. The first operates the huge Terran action. Check that out, it twists its whole neck and chomps its jaw shut. And the second button swings the tail back and forth. Could probably knock out some raptors with that swing. All right, let's see if we've got more space for this Terran T-Rex. It's getting pretty cramped over here on the T-Rex side. This next raptor is a quite old Velociraptor figure from the first Jurassic World movie. This figure was actually made by Hasbro instead of Mattel, who made many of these newer figures over here. And you know, overall, it's a pretty basic figure. You can only move the legs and the arms a little bit, but sadly, there's no chomping or attack action. But nonetheless, we'll still set it up right over here on the Raptor side. Here we've got a battle damaged T-Rex figure. This T-Rex comes in the orange-brown coloring, and you can see that it has battle damage painted all over its body and even some on its face. Plus, it has the button for chomping and roaring at the top of its head. Let's see, oh boy, where are we gonna fit this T-Rex? And we can put him right up front, right here. For the Velociraptor side, we're gonna go with this basic Atrociraptor figure. This figure is much like the other basic figures that we saw in that you can move its tail, its legs, and its arms, but it doesn't have any actions. But it's still a pretty cool piece. I love the bright red eyes, and it has similar painting to the super colossal Atrociraptor that I've got right up there. And we'll go ahead and put this Atrociraptor right next to the other basic raptor figures. Now here is another super old Jurassic World figure, I believe from the first movie once again, which means that this figure I believe was made by Hasbro instead of Mattel, and this whole T-Rex was actually custom colored as well. So let's put this little T-Rex right in here. I think we've got a little space back here. There we go. And here are all the final figures for this collection, so I'm just gonna bring them all over here in a pile. Let's first get this Amber Collection Velociraptor set up. It has some really cool teal coloring with spots all over, and just like all the other Amber Collection, is super posable. And let's place it down right here at the edge of the line. Let's set up a few more raptors over here while we're at it. Here is a smaller gray and yellow Velociraptor. It's very small, so there's no action button, but it's still pretty posable. And we're gonna place this right over here. Next is this red and green Velociraptor, and it has spring-loaded legs, so you can actually press down and send it flying into the air. And we'll set that one up right here. Now I've got 2 more Velociraptors right here. This one is the newer one. I believe it's part of the Dino Tracker series, and it actually does have an attack button for moving its head up and down. And we're gonna set this one back here. And then this Velociraptor is a more clay red or kind of a brown color, and it is a battle damage edition Atrociraptor. So you can see a button right there and the battle damage on its side. You can click on and off. And we're gonna set this raptor up right over here on the edge of the line. But let's not forget our last and smallest T-Rex of the collection. This is the Sound Surge T-Rex, and it has the classic brown coloring all over its body with some gray detailing on the top of its head, and of course, the sound effects that you can turn on with a button. And so finally, let's place this on the T-Rex side, right in front of the Velociraptors. And that is the full collection. Which side do you think would win in a battle? The Raptors or the T-Rexes? Let me know in the comments below. Today, I'm showing you my ultimate collection of Velociraptor versus Baryonyx versus Carnotaurus figures. Let's get started with these brand new ones that I just bought to add to this collection. First up, we've got Baryonyx Limbo from the Camp Cretaceous pack. Let's open it up. This is so cool. This is actually the first of this Baryonyx that I have in my collection. It's got a lime green body, it's got a darker green along the bottom of its back, and it's got some brown detailing on its neck all the way to the top of its head. You can move all the limbs and the tail on this figure, and there is a slide lever action for roaring and the sound effects. Next up, we've got the Velociraptor from the Jurassic World Attack Pack. Let's check it out. This Velociraptor has some pretty unique coloring. It's got a dark blue body and a dark red detailing along the top, which is pretty unique. I don't know that I have another figure colored like this. And here we've got another Velociraptor, but this is actually from the Hammond collection. Let's open it up and check it out. This Velociraptor figure is even darker than the one that we just saw. It's got a dark green body with brown detailing on the tail, all over the back on its legs, and it's still got the lighter underbelly all the way to the chin. And since it's a Hammond collection figure, you'll notice that it is much more posable than a lot of the classic Velociraptor figures. You can move basically every limb on this figure. Let's dig into this bin now, and we're going to start with the Velociraptors over here on the left. The first one here is Velociraptor Delta from the Amber collection. You'll notice with all these Amber collection figures that they are very posable, just like the Hammond collection figures. And Velociraptor Delta here has some bright blue coloring with a lighter underbelly. This is Velociraptor Blue from the Amber collection. Very posable, just like the last one. Can move the tail and all the limbs. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe all the way down the body on both sides. This, I believe, is Velociraptor Echo. This is also from the Amber collection. It's got the light underbelly, a brown body with some darker striping, and the black top too. The next Velociraptor from the Amber collection is, I believe this one is called the Tiger Velociraptor. I can't quite remember. Let me know down in the comments if you remember. I also forgot to mention earlier that in all the Amber collection Velociraptors, you can actually move this claw up and down, just like real life. This last Velociraptor from the Amber collection is Velociraptor Charlie. This figure has a lime green body with darker green detailing all over its back and tail. It's got this headpiece attached to its head, and just like all the other ones, it is very posable and adjustable, and you can stand it in any way you want on your shelf. Let's see what other Velociraptor figures we got in here. I've got these smaller ones. This bright red Velociraptor is actually spring-loaded on its legs, so you can spring it up into the air, which is really cool. It's also got some pretty bright and awesome coloring too. This other Velociraptor is also spring-loaded in the legs, so you can spring it into the air, and it's also got some bright coloring too. And of course, I've got Velociraptor Blue in the smaller figure with battle damage on the side. Right over here, I've got some Jurassic Park Velociraptors. So these figures are some of the oldest in my collection. You can see the Jurassic Park tattoo on their legs on both of them, but they've both got some different coloring. This is an orange and red Velociraptor, and this one, which I'm sure you've seen before, is brown with the black striping all over its body. This Velociraptor is pretty normal looking. It's got the brown body, a little darker brown on the top, but my favorite part is that it's got some bright green eyes. This next Velociraptor figure is another spring-loaded leaping Velociraptor. This one is also super brightly colored. It's got the bright blue on the sides with the darker blue along the top. Here is another Velociraptor figure with muted colors. It's got the gray body with the dark blue detailing along the top and some soft orange eyes. This is another version of Velociraptor Blue, but this one is the spring-loaded leaping version. So just like the others that I've shown you, you can bend down on its legs and it'll spring up into the air if you let it go. And of course, it's got the iconic blue coloring. Here is a basic Velociraptor figure from Jurassic World. It's a lot larger, but the limbs cannot move as much, and it's not as versatile. Even the jaw cannot open and close. But it's still got some pretty cool coloring, the orange body, brown detailing, and yellow eyes. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World, but this is Velociraptor Blue. It's got the soft green-blue body with the iconic blue stripe down on both sides of its body, and the yellow eyes. You know what? I almost forgot these super colossal figures right here. This first Velociraptor is black around most of its body, but it's got this brown striping down the sides with some yellow speckling that's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's also a little bit on its arm as well. It's got some super amazing colored eyes, and of course this super huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs down to its stomach compartment. Way back here, we've got the super colossal Velociraptor Blue figure. This super colossal figure is very similar to the Velociraptor that I just showed you. It's even got the same amazingly colored eyes. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe down both sides of its body, pretty adjustable with its limbs. And of course, it's got the stomach compartment down from its throat all the way down to its stomach, so you can feed it miniature dinosaurs. All right, I think that's it for all our Velociraptor figures. Now let's move to the Baryonyx figures right here in the center. The first one is the Baryonyx figure from the Hammond collection. So you'll see that this figure is very posable and adjustable with all its limbs. Plus, it's got a little more detail than most of the other Baryonyx figures. Next up, we've got the Baryonyx with the battle damage on its body. You can see a huge slash on its neck. It's got some on its leg as well. And I think that's the only battle damage that's shown on this figure. But it's also got the button on its back for the chomping. This is an older Baryonyx figure from Jurassic Park. So this figure is a lot older. And as you can see, it is designed quite a bit differently. But it also has an action that when you move the leg back and forth, the head twists. This is a brighter Baryonyx. It's got a light gray body with white, dark blue, and bright blue detailing on the top of its head. And this figure comes with a slide lever action for different roars and sound effects. This next Baryonyx figure is similar to the one that I opened up at the very beginning of the video, but it has a slightly more forced green color, and it has two tones of brown on the top. It's got the light brown in the back and the dark brown along its neck, and then the light brown right along the top of its head once again. This Baryonyx figure came out during the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got the light brown body with the blue detailing along the top and the super bright orange along the top of its head and nose. Here is another Baryonyx figure from the Jurassic Park series. So this figure, once again, is a lot older. It has the bright yellow underbelly and some light brown with black specks along the top. And like the other Jurassic Park Baryonyx that we saw earlier, it has the action that when you move its leg, its head twists back and forth. Here is our final Baryonyx of the bin. This figure has a light brown side and underbelly. It's got the dark blue detailing all along the top from the tail to the head, and it's got the bright blue reflective coloring right along the top of its head and nose too. There's only one more dinosaur left in the bin, and that is the Carnotaurus figures. Let's start with the super colossal Carnotaurus Toro figure. This figure has the iconic clay red sides with the lighter underbelly and the brown top. It's got the two huge horns on the top of its head. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the right side of its face. And of course, it's got a huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs. This Carnotaurus figure is from the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got some darker red coloring with some purplish coloring along the top. And this Carnotaurus has a different action button than all the rest that I'll show you. It has a chomping action that moves its neck as well. This, I believe, is the Control and Conquer Carnotaurus. It has a much darker red, pretty much brown coloring along its body. It's got a gray underbelly and a dark brown top. And with this figure, the tail controls the neck so you can twist it back and forth, as well as a button on its tail for chomping. This next Carnotaurus, I believe, might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't quite remember. It's got a lighter red and slightly orange coloring along the side with the brown top and the gray underbelly. And this figure also has the tail that controls the head, as well as the button for chomping. I've also got some smaller Carnotaurus figures in here that are not from Jurassic World, but are a bit more generic. But they differ quite a bit more with the coloring. You can see that this one's got some green coloring with it. Still got the iconic horns though. And this figure has some bright orange along its face. You won't see that with the Jurassic World figures. And this figure looks a bit more like Jurassic World with the red and the spines. But this figure has some ginormous horns on the top of its head. That's really cool. Here we've got the Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's even got the broken horn on the top of its head. This figure is colored entirely different too. It's got the dark green body with the orange detailing along the top. So it looks like they started to mix it up for the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. And last of all, we've got the Jurassic World Chompin' Carnotaurus figure. This figure looks more like a baby Carnotaurus in a lot of ways. It's got some huge eyes that you can actually blink with by pressing the button on the top of its head. And it's got a button on the bottom of its tail for a chomping action. Today, I'm gonna show you my collection of Jurassic World Raptor figures. I've got Atrociraptors, I've got Pyroraptors, and of course, I've got Velociraptors and more. First up is one of the figures I'm most proud of. This is a custom colored Atrociraptor, and I painted this myself, one with the yellow and orange sides and the brown striped top. And I put in those red eyes too. I'm super proud of this. Next up, we've got the Tiger Velociraptor from the Amber collection. This is a larger Velociraptor compared to a lot of the Raptor figures in here. And of course, it's got that orange striped back and super posable body. Here is a huge Pyroraptor figure. This is the basic edition from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got feathers all over its body, even on its tail, and it's got a cool looking crown on the top of its head, made of feathers as well. This is a Mega Raptor from Jurassic World Dominion, so this is quite a new figure as well. It's got the red and dark blue body and the lighter detailing on the top of its head. Plus, when you press down on its back, it has a chomping action with sound effects. Here is Velociraptor Echo from the Amber collection. Once again, a larger Velociraptor figure compared to normal, super posable, and it's got some awesome coloring and detailing all over its body. Here is an older Velociraptor figure. It's still Jurassic World, not Jurassic Park, but it's quite old. I think it might have come out during the first movie. It's got the tan body with the green striping on top, and it's pretty limited with what you can do and what you can move around, so they've definitely come a long way. Back here is another super old Jurassic World Velociraptor figure. Once again, pretty large, and this one actually has an action that when you press down on its tail, it swings its arms back and forth. Plus, it has a battle damage button right there. I don't think it works anymore, but normally it would light up and it would have sound effects as well. Now here is a really old Velociraptor figure. This is from Jurassic Park. It's got this orange striped body, and this one used to have an action that when you pressed on its leg, it would move its neck forward, but it's really old, so it doesn't work anymore. Check it out, we've got another Pyroraptor figure. This one is a lot smaller. It's still got the same coloring with the black on its body and the red, and this one actually has an extreme battle damage feature on its side that you can turn on and off. Here's a huge Atrociraptor figure. This one is the light colored with the brown striping, actually the same color as this super colossal figure that you see over in the corner. And of course, it's got those super cool looking red eyes. Next up, we've got the Velociraptor blue figure from the Amber collection. This figure is super posable. It has the iconic coloring for Velociraptor blue, and it actually has a bendable tail. It's like slightly rubber, but you can actually pose it and bend it in different ways, which is pretty cool. Here is a smaller Velociraptor figure. This is from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the light body with the dark blue coloring on top, and it has an extreme battle damage feature on its side that you can turn on and off. Here's another Pyroraptor figure. This one is super posable. You can move its neck in all directions, you can move its legs, and you can even twist its tail as well. It's a bit darker colored than the other Pyroraptor figures that I have. This is Velociraptor Charlie from the Amber collection. It's got the bright green body with stripes, the gray underbelly, and a headpiece right on top of its head. Here is another vintage Velociraptor figure. This might be one of the oldest Velociraptor figures that I have. Check it out, it's got the 3 tones of color and the yellow eyes too. Back here, we've got some basic Velociraptor figures. These both are identical. They are the orange and brown with the yellow eyes. You can't open the jaws, but you can move the arms, the legs, and the tails. And I've also got another basic figure back here that is Velociraptor blue. And this figure also has the same features. You can move the arms, the legs, and the tail, but you can't open the jaw or move the neck or anything like that. Back here, we've got some more super old Jurassic World figures. I think these might be from the first or the second movie. This first one is brown with gray striping and is pretty limited with the movements. You can't even open and close the mouth. And there's also this old Jurassic World Velociraptor with the same limited movements, and it looks like it's stuck in a roaring pose or something like that. Down here, it looks like we've got some super bright Velociraptor figures. These are all pretty brightly colored and differently colored. I've got a teal green Velociraptor with these spring-loaded legs, so you can actually launch it into the air. Same with this one, is actually spring-loaded as well, but it is super bright red and bright green. And finally, there's this slightly more muted green Velociraptor, but it has an action button on its back that you can use to move its arms. Next, I think this is my final Amber Collection Velociraptor. This is Velociraptor Delta with the teal blue coloring with all the darker specks along its body and is super posable, just like the other Amber Collection figures. I've got another older Jurassic World Velociraptor here with the brown and gray striping, and just like the other older figures, it's pretty limited in its movement, so it's stuck with its mouth open like that. These are Atrociraptor figures. I've got a tan and brown one that is in the sneaking pose and is pretty adjustable. It can open its mouth and move its neck and its limbs. And I've also got this white and brown Atrociraptor, just like the super colossal one that you see over there. And it is pretty posable as well. It's even got those orange-red eyes. These Velociraptor figures both have an extreme battle damage on the side that you can open and close. Check that out. And this one is Velociraptor blue with the extreme battle damage. Looks like I've got a few more Velociraptor blue figures in here. It is the most popular Velociraptor after all. This one is this spring-loaded version, so you can launch it into the air as if it's jumping. And this one is the normal version of Velociraptor blue. Check out another vintage Jurassic Park Velociraptor. This is JP10, so it might be a little bit more recent than the JP06 one that we saw earlier. And it has totally different coloring too. It's got the orange and the red on top. And we've got another handful of Velociraptors in here, all with different colors. This first one, I believe, is my most recent one. It is part of the Jurassic World Dominion series. It has some really cool coloring along the top. I've also got this really cool bright red and purple striped Velociraptor, as well as a normal brown Velociraptor with reflective green eyes, and this blue Velociraptor with bright yellow along the top. And over here, I've got another small Atrociraptor figure with the bright orange coloring and the tan striping all over its body. And let's not forget these super colossal Velociraptor figures I had in the back here the whole time. This one is black with brown striping, and it's got a really cool looking eye. And there is also super colossal Velociraptor blue with the blue stripe down the sides and the lighter underbelly, and those same really cool eyes. And also this super colossal Atrociraptor that came out for Jurassic World Dominion. Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we're checking out my collection of Velociraptor versus Triceratops. And I've even got some other species that are close relatives of the Triceratops in here too. First off, we've got the Velociraptor blue figure from the Amber collection. This figure is very movable and very posable. You can see the iconic blue stripe down its side. You can open and close the jaw, move the neck all around. All in all, is a very posable figure. Next up, from the Amber collection is Velociraptor Delta. This figure has some pretty cool detailing and coloring on its body. I love the teal green color and the light underbelly. It's really cool and is very posable as well. Can move all the limbs in its body and it is extremely posable. Over here, we've got a Jurassic Park figure. So this figure is really old. This is one of the classic Triceratops figure. You can see that it's got some battle damage, a huge chunk taken out of its side right there. And this Triceratops actually has an action that when you squeeze its stomach, it moves its head up and down. This is another Velociraptor from the Amber collection. This one is Velociraptor Echo. It's got the brown and black coloring along the top with the lighter underbelly, and just like the other figures, is extremely posable. And one thing I haven't pointed out yet is that the tail is actually a bendable rubber. There's like a piece of metal in there, so you can actually bend it and it'll stay in place. That's pretty cool. Here is a Triceratops figure. I think this one might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't remember. Let me know in the comments if you know where this Triceratops is from. But it's got the clay red body. It's like a little orangish almost. It's got the brown detailing along the top and the action button on its back for the roaring. Plus, you can move all of its legs too. They can go back and forth a little bit. Here is a bright red and purple Velociraptor figure. This is the classic size for the Velociraptor figures. You can open and close the jaw, you can move the arms and the legs as well, but there's no action button on this one. This Velociraptor is an even brighter red and it has some bright green striping and detailing along the top. You can actually move the neck back and forth on this figure and up and down. And this figure is actually spring-loaded in the legs so that it can actually leap up into the air if you were to let it go, which is pretty cool. Up next are these two green Velociraptor figures. They look almost identical, but you can tell that the coloring on this one is a little bit darker. See those stripes? They're a little bit darker. But they both have a button on their back to activate the arm action. Here is one of the brightest dinosaurs in this bin. This is a hybrid Triceratops. As you can tell, it is a hybrid with a Stegosaurus. It's got those gold coloring right along the top there. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the side. And when you move the tail, it actually sticks its head forward as if it's stabbing something. Here's another Velociraptor blue figure, but this is in the classic smaller size. Of course, you can see the iconic stripes down the sides of the body. and it is pretty posable. You can move the arms, the legs, and you can open and close the jaw too. Here is another dark gray Velociraptor, but instead of the blue stripe, we've got some yellow detailing along the top, along its tail, and on the top of its head as well. And this figure is fairly movable as well. You can move the arms and the legs, and of course, open and close the jaw. Here's another super old figure. This is a Jurassic Park Triceratops figure. It's got a dark green coloring along the sides with a darker green along the top. And this figure actually has an action button that when you move this leg, it moves its head up and down. I bet you saw this super colossal figure already too. This is the super colossal Velociraptor Blue. Check out that huge blue stripe down its body. It's got some huge claws on its hands. It's got the light underbelly, and of course, like all the super colossal figures, it has the stomach compartment so you can feed it smaller dinosaurs. Up next, this isn't a Triceratops, but I believe it is a Spinosaurus. So pretty closely related. Comes with some sound effects as you can hear. It's got some pretty cool coloring with the gray along its body. It's got some brighter yellow right on the front as well. And you can use the tail to control the head. Before we go any further, I've actually got some brand new figures that we're gonna open up right now. Let's start with this Jurassic World Dominion, Dr. Ian Malcolm, and Velociraptor pack. So here is the Velociraptor from the pack. It's got a dark green color and some pretty cool detailing along the top. It's like brown and then some green detailing speckled in too. That's pretty cool. I don't have another Velociraptor that is colored like this. And here is the Dr. Ian Malcolm figure with an electric staff, as well as some grasshopper figures that I'm sure you recognize from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. Next, we've got the Triceratops from the Hammond collection. I'm excited to check this one out. This Triceratops is a dark brown color. It has some pretty faint detailing along its body. You can see it's a bit lighter in some areas, but overall it's kind of the same brown color everywhere. It's got a lighter underbelly, but my favorite part is the face and the frill too. That's where the most detail is. Look at these horns. They've looked like they've gone through a lot of wear and tear. I love those orange eyes. So yeah, the face is definitely my favorite part of this figure. And it is fairly movable as well. You can see that you can move the legs back and forth and up and down and all over. And there are 2 joints in the tail as well, which is a pretty cool detail. So all in all, it's okay. I would have liked to have seen better coloring along the body because it's pretty subtle and it kind of just looks like a brown Triceratops all over. But it's pretty different from the other Triceratops I have, so I'm still happy to have this in my collection. Next up, we've got Velociraptor Charlie from the Amber collection. This figure has the bright green coloring with the darker stripes along the top and is just as posable as all the other Velociraptor figures. We've got another hybrid Triceratops figure, and I think we've actually got another one with different coloring. These are both hybrid Triceratops mixed with a Stegosaurus. You can see battle damage on both of them, and on both these figures, when you move the tail, it swings its head forward as if it's stabbing, just like the bright blue one that we saw earlier. Here's another large Triceratops figure. This one actually has 2 action buttons. The first one activates the head to move up and down, and the second button swings the tail. It's got some pretty dark coloring as well. It's a dark green with some dark brown detailing along its top and on the front as well. This Velociraptor is a dark blue color. It's got some darker stripes on the top, and it's actually got an action button, I believe, that activates the arms. There we go. And of course you can open and close the jaw and move the head too. Here is a little Triceratops figure. I think I've actually got 2 of these that are identical. Both of them have the extreme battle damage right there on the side that you can open and close, which is a pretty cool feature. And both of them are this light green color with the brown on the top too. Here's another bright Velociraptor figure. This one is a bright blue with darker striping along the top. And this one is actually spring-loaded, so like the other ones that we saw, if you bend the legs and then let it go, it'll actually jump up into the air. Here's a dinosaur species that's a relative to the Triceratops. This is the Zuniceratops. It's got the two horns in the front and a big frill, and then the green body with the darker detailing along the top. Next up, we've got a Velociraptor with a slashing action. This figure is spring-loaded, so you can swing it side to side to swing those arms and claws around. That's a pretty cool feature. Here's another big dinosaur figure. This is also a relative to the Triceratops. This is an Pseudoceratops, and it has two action buttons on its back. The first one activates the head for the roaring, and the second activates the tail. That's pretty cool. Plus it's got some dark green coloring on its legs that fades into the blue, and then the red detailing on the top and on its face too. Looks like we've got two more Velociraptor figures in here. This first one is another super bright Velociraptor with the orange and yellow, and it is also spring-loaded, so this one will jump up into the air as well. And this other Velociraptor is Velociraptor Blue with battle damage on the side that you can open and close. And then finally, I've got these itty-bitty little Triceratops figures from Jurassic World. They all look pretty identical, but with different coloring. This first one is a dark brown color. I've also got a gray one with lighter gray on the top. And finally, this bright green one with lighter green on the top. This is a collection of Predator vs. Predator figures from Jurassic World, and we're going to be comparing all of them against each other. The first two figures to face off in this collection is this Spinosaurus and this battle-damaged T-Rex. Let's check out the Spinosaurus first. This is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, so this one's actually pretty hard to find nowadays. It's got the huge front arms, it's got a long and narrow snout with a lot of teeth, and this figure is quite a bit larger than its opponent, the battle-damaged T-Rex. This figure is a bright orange color. It's got battle-damaged slashes painted all over its body, even right on its face and on its chin. Now this T-Rex has tiny arms compared to the Spinosaurus, but it's still got the same jaw-chomping action. Next up for the versus is this T-Rex versus this Allosaurus figure. Let's start with the T-Rex. This is the Jurassic World Dominion battle-damaged T-Rex. It's got a darker orange body than the T-Rex that we just saw, and you can turn the battle damage on and off with the click of a button, and overall it has some pretty cool detailing and darker shading. Now let's see what's different about this huge Allosaurus figure, also from Jurassic World Dominion. Now this figure also has battle damage on the side, but you can even open it up and move the ribs to show the stomach underneath. Now this Allosaurus is a little bit smaller than the T-Rex, but it still has an awesome button for jaw chomping and sound effects. Up next for our Predator competition is this Jurassic Park Utah Raptor versus this new Dino Trackers Indoraptor. Let's first check out this Indoraptor. It is super reflective, it's a dark blue color. I think it might be just around the same size as the Utah Raptor, but it's got some really cool actions. First, you can move its arms for some sound effects and a jaw-chomping action. And it's also got a button on its back for more jaw-chomping action. Now let's see how this super old Utah Raptor holds up. You can see that little Jurassic Park tattoo on its leg right there. Now this figure used to be battery operated, but unfortunately since it's so old, it doesn't work anymore. Like many of the vintage Jurassic Park figures, it has a soft rubbery skin, and it still has a chomping action when you press down on its tail. Next, let's go with a Carnotaurus versus an Albertosaurus. The Albertosaurus is a little bit smaller than the Carnotaurus, and it has much brighter coloring. It's got the orange stripe running down its side and the green body, and the tail twists back and forth to control the head and chomp the jaw. Now let's check out this bigger Carnotaurus figure. This figure is dark brown with a gray underbelly. It's got even smaller arms than a T-Rex does. And you'll notice that the Albertosaurus arms are a little bit bigger. And just like the Albertosaurus, the tail swivels back and forth to move the head and for a jaw-chomping action. For our next versus, let's grab this other Carnotaurus figure versus this Suchomimus. Let's start with the Carnotaurus. This figure is a bit smaller than the darker Carnotaurus that we just saw. The coloring overall is a lot more simplistic. There's not anywhere near as much shading. There's a little bit of white underneath its chin, and some dark coloring on its neck and the top of its head. And the actions are a bit more simplistic too. There is one button at the top of its back for some sound effects. Let's compare that to this bright yellow Suchomimus figure. This Jurassic World figure stands a little bit taller than the Carnotaurus figure. It's got a huge spine that runs all the way from the head down to the tail. And just like the Spinosaurus, it has a long and narrow snout with a bunch of teeth on the inside. And this figure has two actions. The first is a jaw chomping action, and the second is a tail swinging action. Our next two predators are this huge Scorpius Rex figure and this even larger T-Rex figure. Let's start with the T-Rex figure. It's got a light brown body with the darker coloring along the top, and you can move all its limbs, and it has the single button on the top of its head for the chomping action. Now the Scorpius Rex has a few more features. First off, I love the detailing on this figure. There's some bumps. You can see this huge ridge running down its back. It's got these tiny little spikes on its elbows. And of course, it's got the poisonous quills on the end of its tail. And it still has two action buttons. The first moves its jaw, and check out those super awesome teeth. And the second button moves its arms for slashing. Our next two predators are first a Carcharodontosaurus versus a Cryolophosaurus. The Carcharodontosaurus is definitely a little bit bigger, but the Cryolophosaurus is a brighter yellow than the Carcharodontosaurus. Comparing the size, the Carcharodontosaurus is a little bit bigger, and the Cryolophosaurus is a brighter yellow color. It's got movable limbs, and you can use the tail to swing the head around. And the Carcharodontosaurus, though it's not as bright, it still has some bright orange running down its back and on its neck. And instead of the tail as the action button on this figure, there's a button on its back for a chomping action. Right here, we've got a Metriacanthosaurus versus an Allosaurus figure from Jurassic Park. Let's check out this vintage figure first. Now this Allosaurus looks quite a bit different from the new Jurassic World figures. It's got a different head shape and a slightly different body. But the cool thing about this figure is that there's multiple battle damage parts that you can take off of its body. Check that out, and even on its tail too. Look at all that battle damage. That is super cool. Now let's compare that with the Metriacanthosaurus. I believe this is from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom era. It's pretty bright in color, and it's around the same size as the Allosaurus figure. And this one doesn't have any battle damage, but it does have an action button on its back to control the jaw. Before we continue on with the rest of the bin, let's actually open up this new Hammond Collection Concavinator. Alright, now I think I only have one other Concavinator figure in my entire collection, so I'm super happy to add this one. It looks like it has quite a few different colors on its body. It's mainly got this blue, and there's some bright orange, brown, light tan, and then a very dark red right around its eyes. And since it's a Hammond Collection figure, it doesn't have any action buttons, but its body is super posable. You can bend it at all of its limbs and joints. And its neck and head is especially posable, which I really like. All in all, I think this figure stands up to the quality of all of the other Hammond Collection figures. Next up for our Predator versus Predator, we've got another Carnotaurus versus an Allosaurus. The Carnotaurus figure is quite a bit larger than the Allosaurus, so let's check this one out first. Now this figure has a bright orange body with the gray underbelly. It's got the tiny little front arms, just like the figure we saw earlier, and it also has the tail that you can move back and forth to move the head and chomp the jaw. Now let's see what's different about this Allosaurus figure. I think this one is even brighter in color. It's got the yellow and two tones of blue. It's got bigger front arms than the Carnotaurus figure. It's also got a tiny little row of spines running down its back to its tail. And this figure has two action buttons. The first operates the jaw, and the second moves the arms up and down. The next two predators are this Dilophosaurus versus the Scorpiovenator. These figures are around the same size, but you'll see that the Dilophosaurus is a little bit longer. Now this Dilophosaurus is the basic edition, so there is no action button. You can move the limbs a little bit, and you can activate the frills, but sadly, that's pretty much it. Let's see how that compares against the Scorpiovenator. This figure is pretty brightly colored as well, and you can move all of the limbs, but this figure does have an action button. When you press down on its back, it activates the chomping action. check out those sound effects too. Next, we've got the Siatsmicararum versus the Irritator. Between these two, the Siatsmicararum is definitely the larger dinosaur. It's got tons of spikes on its head, running all the way down to its back. And like many of the other figures we've seen so far, you can move the tail back and forth to move its head and chomp its jaw. Now let's check out its competitor, this Irritator. Although it's a little bit smaller, it still has some really cool coloring with the 2 tones of blue on the top. And on this figure, you can use the tail to move the head around as well, although you have to open and close the mouth manually. Let's keep on going. For our next versus, we've got a Ceratosaurus versus an Indoraptor, and see how much longer the Indoraptor is compared to the Ceratosaurus. This Indoraptor is the basic edition, so once again, there are no action buttons that you can press, but you can still move its arms, legs, and its tail, and it's still got some awesome spikes on its body. Let's see how the Ceratosaurus is different. It's got a dark green body with some black detailing on the top. This dinosaur seems a lot more bulkier in size. And of course, it's got an action at the top of its back for roaring and sound effects. This is the Baryonyx versus the Amber Collection Raptor. I think the Baryonyx is a little bit bigger, but this Raptor is so much more brighter. Because this figure is from the Amber Collection, there's a lot more attention to the coloring, and the limbs can be posed in many more different ways too. This figure is perfect for posing on a display shelf. Now let's check out its competitor, the Baryonyx. Because this figure isn't from the Amber Collection, there's not as much that you can pose on its body, but the cool part about this figure is that it has an action button on its back. Check out that chomping action. Now let's compare 2 very different dinosaurs. This is a Pteranodon versus an Allosaurus. This Pteranodon figure has foldable wings that you can open up, and it's probably a foot in length from wingtip to wingtip, and it's got a button on its back to flap the wings too. Plus, you can open and close its mouth manually. Now let's see this Allosaurus figure. This one is pretty simplistic in color. It has the gray on the sides and then the yellow detailing all along the top. Of course, it's got the iconic ridge right above its eye. And on this figure, there's one single action button for the jaw. These next 2 figures are smaller. I believe this one is called an Elaphrosaurus versus, if I remember correctly, the Rugops primus figure. The Elaphrosaurus has a long and narrow snout and is mostly tan. It's got some brown as well. But this other figure, it's got darker coloring as well, and you can move its tiny little arms and open and close its mouth. Up next, we've got 2 different raptor species. This first one is a Pyroraptor from Jurassic World Dominion, and this other one is, I believe, an Amber Collection Velociraptor. Just like many of the other Amber Collection figures, it is a lot more posable than many of the normal figures, and they did a pretty decent job with its coloring as well. And the Pyroraptor has some decent detailing. You can check out all those feather designs right there. And the coolest part, I think, about the Pyroraptor are these huge feathers right at the top of its head. And next, we've got a Jurassic World miniature T-Rex figure versus a Jurassic Park Velociraptor. Both these figures are pretty old, but this Velociraptor is the oldest. It's got a spring-loaded chomping action, and it features some pretty unique coloring that I don't think I have another Velociraptor that's colored like this. Now let's check out this other miniature T-Rex figure. This specific figure comes from an older line from Jurassic World. I think it was actually made by Hasbro, so it's got some battle damage right there on the side. And on this figure, you can move the tail back and forth and side to side to operate the jaw and the head. Today we're checking out some of Jurassic World's most dangerous dinosaur figures, and I've even got this brand new Dino Tracker Indoraptor figure that we're gonna open up in a little bit. Let's get started with this huge Indominus Rex figure in the very back. This figure is probably 2 or 3 feet long from tail to the head. It's got the gray color and 2 action buttons, one for slashing the claws and the other for opening and closing the jaw. Next up, we've got another awesome dinosaur from Jurassic World. This one is from the Dominion movie. This is a Giganotosaurus. This figure is probably 2 feet long, and it has some action buttons. You can use the button to swing its torso around with sound effects, and there's another button to open and close the jaw as well. Next up is the huge Spinosaurus dinosaur figure. This is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, and I believe that these were some of the largest land carnivores ever. And check it out, there's a button to open and close its long, narrow jaw. It's also got a tongue as well, and some really cool detailing. And how could we have a most dangerous dinosaur without a T-Rex in the collection? This is the battle damaged T-Rex that you can turn on and off with the click of a button. It's also got those tiny front arms, the huge back legs, and a fully posable body too. Another dangerous dinosaur is the Allosaurus. This is from Jurassic World Dominion, so it's a newer figure. It's got the extreme battle damage on the side that you can open up to reveal the insides. You can close the rib and then close the skin as well. And it's got an action button on its back for chomping and roaring. It's also got some decently sized front arms. I think they're bigger than a lot of the T-Rex's arms in comparison to their back legs. This is the Therizinosaurus, and although I believe that this was an herbivore, I'm sure you remember from Jurassic World Dominion that this was not a dinosaur that you want to mess with because of these huge claws on its hands. This figure also has some action buttons as well. You can use the tail to twist the torso around and to open and close its jaw and move its neck too. Next up is the Tarbosaurus figure from Jurassic World. This looks a lot like a T-Rex because it's got those small front arms and the big back legs, but some differences are it's got these huge spikes running all along its spine to its tail. It's got some really cool coloring. And with this figure, you can use the tail to twist the head back and forth and open and close the jaw too. I love those red eyes that match its chin too. Now here is a super dangerous dinosaur because of how smart it is. This is the Indoraptor. It's got the gold stripe running all the way down both sides of its body, and this is actually a pretty sizable figure. It might be 1.5 feet long, or maybe a bit over a foot. And this figure has some actions. You can use its tail to twist its head back and forth and its torso as well, and you can move its claws and open and close its jaws too. So you can do quite a bit with this figure, which is really cool. Since we saw the older Indoraptor, why don't we check out this new Jurassic World Dino Trackers Track and Attack Indoraptor figure. Let's open it up and check it out. All right, this Indoraptor figure might actually be even a little bit larger than the one that we just saw, and it is super reflective. It's still black, but it almost has this bluish reflectiveness all over it. It's also got the gold stripe as well, and there's also this tracker headpiece that you can put right on to the dinosaur. And there we go, the headpiece is now on. But let's check out these other functions. There is a button on its back that when you press that, it opens its jaws. And its eyes light up as well. And these teeth are actually quite a bit larger than on the previous versions of Indoraptors too, which I think is a really cool touch. And you can move both arms up and down to move its neck and for a slashing action too. Our next dangerous dinosaur from Jurassic World is this Megaraptor figure. It's got the red and blue coloring, it's got the huge claws on its hands, and the smaller front arms and the huge back legs, plus an action when you press down on its body, it chomps with sound effects. Over here we've got the Scorpius Rex figure with 2 action buttons, one to operate its jaw, and one to operate its arms too. Look at that slashing action. It's also got a spring-loaded tail with those poisonous quills, and you can adjust the legs for standing and for crawling as well. This dangerous dinosaur is the Baryonyx from the Hammond collection. So this figure has a bit more detailing in its body and the coloring, and it is super posable, so this is a perfect display dinosaur. Next up is this huge Carnotaurus figure. I would not want to meet this dinosaur in the wild. This dinosaur stands on its 2 back legs, and it has little itty bitty front arms, maybe even smaller than a T-Rex. And on this figure, you can use the tail to move the head around in a real lifelike way, and open and close the jaw too. All right, we've got another Indoraptor figure. This is the basic edition, so there's a lot less that you can do with this in terms of actions, but it looks like it's in the crawling pose, which is really cool, sneaking along the ground. Still got some quills on the top of its back, and those red eyes too. Let's not forget about the good old Velociraptor. These are definitely some dangerous dinosaurs. This is an older figure from Jurassic World. It's got the dark green body with the black detailing. You can move the arms, and I don't think you can move the legs at all. So actually on this figure, the only thing you can move are the arms. Ooh, here is a really interesting dangerous dinosaur figure. This is a Dilophosaurus. And if you remember from the movies, these dinosaurs actually spit poisonous venom, which is really interesting. I'm not sure I know of any other dinosaur that does that. And this Dilophosaurus figure is pretty basic, so it's got the all red body. You can move the arms, the legs, and the tail, as well as open and close the frills beside its head. Here is a Dimetrodon, which I'm sure you recognize from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. I've actually got two of them over here, and they have totally different coloring, but still they both have the orange spine on both. This one has a light blue body, and you can use its tail for a chomping action. And this figure doesn't have an attack button, but you can still move its legs, you can twist its tail, and you can manually adjust its head too. Next up is a Baryonyx figure. This dinosaur is definitely dangerous. This figure has the green body with some brown along the top. It's got the small front arms and the larger back legs, though not quite as big as a T-Rex or many of the other dinosaurs. And it's got an action button on its back for chomping its long, narrow jaw. All right, check this out. This is a Mosasaurus figure. And although this figure is small, in real life, these dinosaurs are ginormous. And I would be super scared if I ran into one of these in the ocean in real life. This figure has some battle damage on the side. It's kind of old, so it might be a little broken, but it can open and close to reveal the battle damage underneath. Next up, we've got some Atrociraptor figures from Jurassic World Dominion. This first one is the white with brown stripes, the classic Atrociraptor figure. I've also got this battle damage Atrociraptor figure right here with the dark red body with darker detailing along the top and the battle damage right on the side that you can turn on and off. That is a really cool feature. Here's another Velociraptor figure. This one has some really cool bright coloring, the green and the red striping. It's also got some battle damage on the side. It's a button that you can press. It used to light up, but it's really old, so it doesn't work anymore. And with this figure, you can actually move the tail to open and close the jaw. And as you can see with these earlier figures, there's barely any teeth. It's like they barely painted them on. So they're doing a lot better job with them nowadays. Next up is the Pachycephalosaurus, and although it's an herbivore, you better watch out for these dinosaurs because those hard heads will headbutt you, and that would hurt so much. With this figure, you can use the tail for a spring-loaded headbutting action, and you can adjust the head and move the arms and the legs as well. Here's a bigger dinosaur. This is the Ceops microrarum. This dinosaur definitely looks scary and dangerous. It's got some really cool coloring all over its body. It's got tons of spikes along its back and on the top of its head. Kind of looks like hair in kind of a funny way. It's got some green eyes, and there's an action button to move its neck and to open and close its jaws too. Look out for those scary teeth. Here is a winged dinosaur. I believe it's called a Dimorphodon. And although it's small, look at that huge jaw and all those teeth. You definitely want to stay out of the way of this winged dinosaur. And for our last two dinosaurs of the bin, we've got two smaller Velociraptor figures, but they each have different features. This first one is a bit more basic. You can move the arms, the legs, and the mouth, but it doesn't have any action button or anything like that. However, this second one, which is a lot brighter, you can adjust its arms and its head as well. This one is actually spring-loaded, so you can actually have this Velociraptor spring up into the air, which is a really cool feature. this channel, we are checking out a collection of Jurassic World figures that I predict will be in the next Jurassic World 4 movie. And in a little bit, I've got some brand new ones that we're gonna open up. The first that we're gonna check out is, of course, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. How could this dinosaur not be in the next Jurassic World movie? And this specific T-Rex figure is actually from the last movie called Jurassic World Dominion. The next dinosaur that I think will be in Jurassic World 4 is the Spinosaurus. This is actually the Camp Cretaceous figure, and it is even a little bit larger than the T-Rex figure. Also, I really hope that they bring back the Indominus Rex. This new dinosaur was made known from the first Jurassic World movie, and this figure is actually the battle damage edition, meaning with this button right here, you can actually hide the battle damage on the side. And there's a button on its tail for the roaring action. Next up for my predictions, I've got the huge Giganotosaurus figure. We saw this dinosaur in the last Jurassic World Dominion movie, and this figure is actually the super colossal Giganotosaurus, so as you can see, it is way larger than any of the other figures that I have. Up next is the mighty Mosasaurus figure. This dinosaur was from the first Jurassic World movie, and I think it is one of the best aquatic dinosaurs that they've shown, so I hope they bring it back. And with this Mosasaurus figure, you can move all the fins around, and open and close the jaw. Over here, we've got another T-Rex figure. This is a Battle Edition T-Rex. I think it might be from Camp Cretaceous, and you can see that it's got some battle damage slashes right on its side. Plus, the figure is fully posable with its arms, legs, tail, neck, and its head, and it has a button to chomp the jaw. Up next for my Jurassic World 4 predictions is the Therizinosaurus. This dinosaur had an epic battle in the Jurassic World Dominion movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if they brought it back again for another fight. This figure has a fully posable body and an attack button on its tail. Over here, we've got the Carnotaurus, one of my favorite carnivores. This figure features posable legs and arms, and an attack tail that moves its head and chomps its jaw. This is another T-Rex figure, but this is actually an older figure, I think from the first Jurassic World movie. It has a fully tan body, other than a little bit of gray on its face, and it features posable arms, legs, and an attack button on its back for chomping. I think Jurassic World 4 might also have a Pentaceratops. This is one massive dinosaur, and it has one of the biggest frills that I've seen. And this figure has two buttons, one for a head ramming action, and the other for a torso swinging action. Here's another herbivore figure. This is a Sinoceratops. Jurassic World has a few different versions of this figure. This is in the light gray with some tan and yellow detailing, and it features an attack tail that moves its head. My next prediction is another awesome predator. This is an Allosaurus. I believe this figure was released with Camp Cretaceous, and it features posable arms, legs, and tail, and has a slide lever action on its back for roaring and chomping. Right over here is another Allosaurus figure. I believe this one was released, I think, from Fallen Kingdom. And this Allosaurus features a dark gray body with yellow detailing. It has posable arms and legs, and a single button on its back for the chomping action. All right, let's dig into these brand new ones that I just bought. This first box has a Scorpiovenator and an Iguanodon. These are part of the Dino Trackers Roarin' Battle Pack. Here is the Scorpiovenator. I have one other Scorpiovenator figure, but this is a whole new color scheme. It's got dark brown, some orange, and then the light underbelly. Plus, it has a chomping action. And here is the Iguanodon figure. I have a few other Iguanodon figures that look pretty similar to this, but once again, this has totally different coloring. This one features a mostly tan body with the brown detailing along the top of its body. And of course, you can press down on its body for a roaring action. Next up to open up from my brand new figures is this Hammond Collection Ankylosaurus. And let's attach that tail. All right, this figure is looking quite a bit different from many of my other Ankylosaurus figures. First off, it's a bit larger than many of my other Ankylosauruses, and it has much more natural coloring with the dark green on top and the lighter underbelly. But best of all, like all of the Hammond Collection figures, this figure is super posable. It looks like its tail has 3 or 4 different joints, so you can move it around in a really lifelike way. Of course, you can move the legs around and pose them in all sorts of ways. And coolest of all, you can move its head around and even open and close its mouth. And next up is the Hammond Collection Dilophosaurus. And here it is. So once again, it is very posable all over its body. And best of all, this figure actually features a removable frill. So you can actually take it off and replace it with this little piece as if the frills are closed. Next up over here, I've got the Sound Surge Indominus Rex figure. This figure is a lot smaller than many of my other I-Rexes. I also think Jurassic World might have a Scorpius Rex in it. This figure is quite large and it features 2 attack buttons, one for the jaw and one for arm slashing. And of course, what would be a Jurassic World movie without a Stegosaurus in it? This figure features the brown body with some green and tan detailing, and it has the attack feature where you can swing its tail. I also hope that Jurassic World 4 has some baryonyxes in it. This baryonyx is a bright green color with some brown detailing, and of course has a roar action. And I also have this older baryonyx figure from Fallen Kingdom with the orange highlight on the top of its head. Here's another dinosaur specifically from the older Jurassic World movies. This is an Indoraptor. This is the basic figure, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail. Next up, I've got a Carcharodontosaurus figure. This one is in the light tan yellow coloring with some brown and orange detailing, and it has an attack button on its back for chomping its jaw. Here I've got another Dilophosaurus figure. This figure is a lot larger than the Hammond Collection version, and it is the basic version, so you can move its frills back and forth, as well as its arms, its legs, and its tail. Jurassic World 4 has got to have some winged dinosaurs too. This is a Pteranodon, and this figure features the orange coloring along its wings and the brown body. Here's another dinosaur from Jurassic World Dominion that I think might show up again. It's an Velociraptor, and this figure is the basic edition, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail. Here's another Ankylosaurus figure. You can see that it's quite a bit smaller than the Hammond Collection, and it still has some pretty realistic coloring with the green and the gray and the brown. Plus, there's an action button on this one for swinging the tail. Next up is another Dilophosaurus figure, but this one is battery operated, so let's hear some sounds from it. This figure over here is an old Velociraptor figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It features posable legs and posable arms. Next up, also from the Jurassic World Dominion movie, is this basic Pyroraptor figure. And I really hope they bring this one back for the 4th movie. This Pyroraptor is the basic figure, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail. Over here, I've got another Indominus Rex figure. This one is older, and I believe was called the Bite and Thrash Indominus Rex. Check it out, another Ankylosaurus figure. This one features much brighter coloring all over its body, and has a slide lever action on its back to swing its tail around. This figure set is from Jurassic World Dominion. It features a Parasaurolophus and Owen with his lasso. Up next is another Pteranodon figure. This one is a whole lot smaller, but it has some pretty cool detailing along its wings and a button on its back for flapping the wings. And of course, one that I'm pretty sure that they'll have in the next movie is Velociraptor Blue. And not only that, but we also saw Velociraptor Beta in the last movie as well. So I think that they'll be bringing these Velociraptors back. I've also got a few more Velociraptor figures in here. This first one has a light green body with a darker detailing along the top and features posable arms, legs, and a mouth. And this second Velociraptor features a dark gray body with yellow detailing and the posable arms, legs, and jaw. My next prediction is a Stygimoloch dinosaur. This figure specifically is pretty small and has a dark body, but some dark purple coloring along its neck and its head, and it features a headbutting action when you press down on the tail. We saw some Apatosaurus figures in the last movie, but I think that they might bring back the Brachiosaurus dinosaurs. This figure is a baby Brachiosaurus and has a light green body with a darker green along the top, and has opposable jaw, neck, and legs. Over here is another Parasaurolophus figure. I believe this one is also from Jurassic World Dominion, and it features a posable head, arms, and legs. I've predicted a few other horned dinosaurs, but I think Jurassic World will also have Triceratops dinosaurs in it. This figure is a lot smaller than many of the other horned dinosaurs that I have, and it features battle damage that you can open and close on the side. And here is another Atrociraptor figure. This one's a lot smaller than the one that we saw earlier, but it has a darker red coloring with the gray detailing, and it has battle damage that you can open and close on the side. Right over here is a miniature Dilophosaurus figure. It has the brown body with the blue detailing, and it still has the frills on the front that you can open and close. And last of all is a teeny tiny Spinosaurus figure. It still has the giant spine on its back, and it has a chomping action as well.
Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.